specifically focused on relationship management. My name is Frederike, and what I will be doing in this series is building AI agents with you and learning along the way of how it can be built. Because I'm a non-techie, but I'm very excited about AI agents, and I believe that they are the future of how we interact with with the computer world, or with anything that can help us to automate things, especially those nitty-gritty details, admin work, and all the work that is kind of time consuming and doesn't really require anything to think about. And so with this series, I learn how to build AI agents, and I mainly focus on relationship management, mainly because we are also building a CRM that is based on AI agents to cut out all the manual admin nitty-gritty details that would be better suitable for an AI agent to take care of instead of us. So we can focus on building relationships. And with that, let's get started with this today's topic. What we do today is that we build a composable AI email agent. It's based on the Langbase framework that I found yesterday. If you want to go more into the very basics of how it works, I suggest for you to check out my video from yesterday, where I went into base AI dev. It's related to Langbase. It's basically, I feel, almost like a learning environment where you can go more into detail of the very basics of how it works. So yesterday we created an AI pipe. A pipe is kind of like an AI agents. So this is how Langbase describes AI agents. They call it pipe, but essentially it's the same. And so today we will tackle the AI agent, email agent, and we go about this guide because I'm also rather new to AI agents, but I see a lot of importance in them to better understand how they work, how we can stack them together, and how we can make them work. And I believe that in the future we will all be able to create our own AI agents, and it's better to start early on than too late to really understand how they work. And so for that reason, this video is mainly for everyone who is not a techie yet, or maybe is a techie but wants to go a bit more deeper into these AI tools. It is, however, rather technical, so we will be going through the process here of building this composable AI email agents. It's raw and unfiltered. And with that, let's get started. So you find this here under the Langbase docs. So this is what we will be building. It's a step-by-step guide to build an AI email agent using the Langbase SDK. This is a rather just a tryout email agent. So if there's anything where I use some APIs, I have to use a lot of them, then I will, this is only on a local computer. So it's not something that you will be seeing in production. So in this guide, what we will be building is an AI email agent as the SaaS that uses multiple Langbase pipes to summarize an email, analyze sentiment of the email, decide whether the email needs a response or not, pick the tone of the response email, and generate a response email. I already checked out the live demo, and we can quickly do that too to see what we will be building. So if we go to the live demo, we see here an AI email agent. We can input an email here, and then it will give us a lot of details. Let's quickly do that before we dive into how we can do this ourselves. So I opened here an email. It's not the right email, put it that way, for normally what we put in, but I don't want to use a personal one. So I used a newsletter of Nicole Kasperson. She's running a community here in New York about fintech is femme. And what I did is basically just copy paste the whole content of the specific email. Let's put it that way. I put this into the AI email agent. Here we have the email. I sent the email, and what I automatically see is that this is the whole incoming email, so what I just posted in. And if we scroll down, I know that's a very long one, what we will be seeing is that we have a sentiment analysis, so an email summary. The author recounts a recent experience of being scammed by someone impersonating their bank, Sophie, after receiving a text, and so on. So if we read the email, this is actually rather accurate. And then it says, should you respond? Reply yes, category primary and pipe decision maker. Then the email writer is professional, and the email reply is subject, recent scam experience and upcoming fintech security summers. Dear username, thank you for sharing your experience regarding the recent scam incident. I appreciate your insights on the increasing sophistication of fraud tactics and so on. I think for a very start, that's amazing. As said, it's not perfect because it's just now, as an example, based on a, we could say newsletter and not a real email. But I think you get the gist, and you can try it by yourself too, with real emails that don't have to be shared via this video. So let's close this and let's see if we can build exactly the same thing. So we can also close the base dev, and now we go here for the guide. So what does it tell us to do? So it says we will create a basic Next.js application that will use the Langbase SDK to connect to the AI pipes, so the AI agents, and generate responses in order that will be used by other pipes to complete the workflow of our agent. Here's what the final agent will look like. It says, send a valid email. I'm stuck and frustrated because the billing API isn't working and the API documentation is outdated. Then you see that this framework is rather difficult to see, because it also says something. He sent a demo request to understand composable AI agent, and then would send a spam email. Congratulations, you have been selected as the winner of a $100 million lottery. But let's get started. So what we have to do first is create a Next.js application. To build the agent, we need to have a Next.js start application. If you don't have one, you can create a new Next.js application using the following command. So we do this, we just copy this here, and we go, let me quickly open my command line. So what I normally do is we actually have to copy paste this again. I go to agents, so this is the folder here, and I quickly copy paste this folder and I go to this folder. So now we are in this folder, and now we can copy the code again. We go again here and we say, no, wait a second, we forgot something. Can we actually do this? I think we can do that. Let's see. I think it should now, if I'm not totally mistaken, create a folder AI email agent in that agent's folder. Okay, to proceed, yes. We click enter, and now it will create. Would you like to use TypeScript? I think we use TypeScript. Let's do yes. ESLint, yes. Tailwind, yes. Yes. App router, yes. TurboPack, no. Import, no. No, we don't want to customize it. So now it's loading. It takes a bit of time. So this will create a new Next.js application in the AI email agent directory. Navigate to the directory and start the development server. So this is what we will be doing once we are done. But we can already go here to our Visual Studio Code, because I normally like to work in that one just to have a bit of a better overview. I know that there are some newer ones as well. I still have to figure this one out, but for now, let's go with this one. So we go File, Open Folder, and we go to, I have it here on my desktop, Agents, and we have our AI email agent. I select the folder. This is in German, so sometimes you might be a bit confused. But there we have now our folder structure. I'm still learning exactly how these work, but basically in the app, then you can have all of these different pages, as well as specific API routes as well. But we will also, for this project, ask Claude quite heavily to give us some more insights into how we can build this together, because I just scanned it quickly and I already saw several questions that I as a beginner had of how to build those AI agents and how to basically bring those different code snippets together in a structure. And so this is something that we will be asking Claude in a second as well. So what you will be learning if you're just starting out and building and programming, and especially using AI agents, that it's not only about code that you can copy paste, but it's also about the structure and the architecture of how you bring it together. And so this took me a bit of a while to understand, and I'm still learning here to see, okay, how we can actually first stack it together in an application. So how does it look like? But then also how to import specific components and specific AI agents. But then also how to say, okay, where exactly does the code need to go so that the structure within the code is as smooth as possible as well. And this is something where I'm still struggling on, but something at the same time that is beautiful to learn while you try to build those AI agents and learn how to build AI agents yourself too. So let's quickly see if we are done now. No, we're not done. It's still loading. So this apparently takes a bit of time. So we can also scroll through this already to some extent and see that we also have to install Langbase SDK. So we will do this in a while. But just to get started while it is loading, what we can do is already say, let's see if this works. We basically do a whole copy paste here of this whole page. And we say, this is our guide. We copy paste the guide. We go to Claude. You can use also ChatGPT. Sometimes I use ChatGPT too. You can actually do both of them. DeepSeek also works well, but sometimes currently, especially, it's a bit overloaded, so it doesn't work all the time. So we can just put this in here, the whole thing, and can say, hey, I am a beginner to coding, and I do not really know where exactly to input the code into the Next.js application for that specific AI email agent. Can you please help me and give me the best possible structure of that code and where to input it, especially for these post requests. And we see there's like several post requests, and as said, I'm not an expert, so we make now copy paste everything and we go here. We could, if this is not yielding anything, we can also go for the search, but we don't necessarily have to. We can put the same into Claude and say, please answer the questions at the end of the document. And please bear in mind that I am a total beginner in programming and thus need more step-by-step guides and explanation. So this is the beauty. You can always look from different angles and also try different AI models and see which ones help you the most. I found so far that Claude is rather helpful for programming, but as said, it really depends on you and also on the different programs and the different kind of code that depends a bit like which AI model is best suited for that. Claude, for example, has the problem that it's not so up to date. So if you want to do specific search activities, or also if you want to use specific code, then it only has the earlier versions of 2024 in that. And obviously with the AI field, there's so much development so fast. So for example, the OpenAI API that it is using is an old one and not a new one. And so especially when you're a beginner, it's sometimes a bit complicated to figure out how to solve it better, especially as you are not so used yet that to see, okay, how can I actually adapt the code to make it work? And so this is why I use Claude for more basic stuff. But sometimes it can still be helpful if you put in the whole code, because then it gives you a bit more insights. So let's put Claude 2. We can try DeepSeek. But DeepSeek, as said, is currently a bit slower than normal because I guess so many people are using it right now. And so that's why it slows down the process. But let's go back and see first if we have been some here progress, and then we can later go back to the responses. So this is still loading. So this takes a lot of time. As you can see, probably I'm also slowing it down now a bit, given the fact that I'm using now all these tools. But as this is the case, let's first go back to the answers and see what they're coming up with so we can get a bit of a better understanding. And you just remind me of something. Let's quickly go through here and just get an understanding of this Langbase project. So what it says is install Langbase SDK. So we will do this. We have to fork all these AI APIs, AI pipes, and then we have to put them in here. So this will also be an interesting task. Then we have to create those new files of the sentiment analysis at the following code. Do the same here with a post request. And this is exactly send a post request to the API sentiment endpoint with the email content in the request body to get the sentiment analysis of the email. And I'm not so sure where to send this post request. So this is especially what I asked beforehand for the AI model, That's the same with the summarize email. It's actually going very similar. Then it comes to decision making. Pick an email writer, write the email response. And then step 8 will be to build this email agent. So now that we have all the pipes in place, we can start sending the email content to our agent and generate a response email if needed. So this is then putting everything together. And then there's a live demo where we can check it out. And we can also get the complete code of the agent available on GitHub. But obviously, we want to build it ourselves so we can actually learn how it works. So let's see if we made some progress here. Look, this looks good. We now created the AI email agent. So now that we have done this, we already are here in the CD AI email agent because we already opened it in the VS Code. Now we can go to npm run dev. So this is what we will be doing here. We have it open already. We go terminal, new terminal. We wait a second, and then we say npm run dev. And this lets us create the development server. So now if we can go this here and you can say localhost 3000. I have some other applications that I run beforehand. So maybe sometimes you see the old favicon and image in here, but I'm pretty sure that we will likely just see a Vercel code, but let's see. So far, not that much. It's still loading. It might be that my computer is a bit slower. So now you see this is exactly the Next.js landing page that you normally see when you just created the Next.js structure. So this is where you can then get started. It already set the CSAC app page TSX where you can make changes so that then you bring that to life. But we can do that later. And we can also look at their GitHub. Maybe we can just basically plug into their GitHub and create those how do we say this, those front-end pages, so those pages that the user is seeing and interacting with. But for now, let's leave it as it is because we have some work to do. So now we are in our AI email agent. We have now to install the Langbase SDK. So we copy it here. We go to our Visual Studio Code. I normally don't like to do this in the same terminal, so I like to create a new terminal. And then in the new terminal, I install the Langbase. I sometimes also like to do this actually directly in the command line here, where we also installed it because I think it's a bit easier and a bit more clean, but this is obviously always your decision what you prefer. And now we see that it installs this, and we also see now that we have to fork these AI pipes. So this is something I have not done yet. So let's figure out and explore that together. So let's fork the following pipes needed for the AI email agent in Langbase dashboard. And now let's go to the email sentiment, a pipe to analyze the sentiment of the incoming email. So let's do the first one. So that looks interesting. So this is in production. It looks for GPT-4o Mini. It says the prompt, so you see here, email sentiment. The prompt is your sentiment analyzer. You will analyze user email sentiment, respond in format with sentiment key, and pick from values. Output should be in JSON format. Here's the email. And this is, okay, so we have to definitely go into more details later on to figure out how to create those pipes in a more clearer way. For now, we won't play around with it that much and just accept it as it is. But we can see that we can here input specific variables, specific values, so happy, frustrated, neutral, sad, and specific email examples, as well as that we could also add specific tools to it. So this is quite great. So now let's fork this. Pipe owner, so this is me. The pipe name, we leave it exactly as it is, and we leave the description exactly as it is. So as this is a trial, we don't play around with it too much. So we create the fork. So now the pipe email sentiment forked successfully. I'm just wondering if it's forked, like what do we do with this? Like how do we now? So now we fork this. So memory LLM keys. So let's see. So we have specific keys here. So this is not something. User level keys, pipe level keys. So we can go with that. That's interesting. So code once tokens fork. I think we need the API for that one. So pipe API keys. Pipe is your custom AI agent available as an API, the fastest way to ship AI features in your app. Think of it as a building block for composable AI, like a React component or Docker container for AI. So this is a better description of AI that I gave you. And then Pipe can leverage any LLM tool or knowledge base, combining them with persistent memory to supercharge your queries and tasks. With fully customizable LLM-powered AI features effortlessly getting started, all you need is an API key. Pipe works with any language, ship AI fast. So this is the key. So we will copy the key, and then we will integrate this key into our application. So let's quickly see how we do that. So we got some explanation here. The email sentiment. So we have to replace the pipe API key with the copied API key of the email sentiment pipe. So we do this a bit differently now. So we see that you now have the API keys for each of the pipes. You can use these keys to initiate pipes using the Langbase SDK. Copy and paste these keys in the end local file of your project. So what we will first doing is creating copy. And then we go back to our profile and we have, let's see if we have this env.local. No, we don't. So we create a new one and we say .env.local. And then we bring them all in here. And then we can kind of copy paste those API keys in a second. So now that we have the API keys, now we don't have them yet. So we have the email sentiment. Let's get the summarizer as well. So similar thing, you are a content summarizer. You will summarize content without losing context into less wordy to the point version. So this is how it works. So we will fork it. We have me as an owner. We leave it as it is. We create the fork. Then we will have here our API key. Then we will copy paste in a second. Then we do exactly the same thing with the decision maker. You see now your decision maker that analyzes and decides if the given email requires a response or not. Make sure to check if the email is spam or not. If the email is spam, then it does not need a response. If it requires a response based on the email urgency, decide the response date. Also define the response priority. Use following keys and values accordingly. Respond, category by when, priority. So if we now go down, what we see is that we have here those different variables, like these variables and keys and values here. So we have the respond value that says true or false. So shall we respond or not? It's the category primary or spam. It's the priority value, urgent, high, medium, or low. And it's the summary, outdated API documentation, program, and a sentiment. So here we have different, now this one. So let's fork this one as well. So again, this is me. We leave it as it is. We create a fork. And now we have, this was the decision maker. Now we pick the email writer. Same play. Let's fork it and quickly have a look. You're an email tone picker that analyzes the input and picks up the response email tone. So you see here it says the writers. It's basically pick from writers, so it can pick if it's professional, formal, informal, casual, or friendly. We could obviously add here different elements to make it really our email picker, but for now, let's fork the pipe. Again, it's us. We create the fork. And then we will do the email writer. So here you're an email writer that writes a concise, to the point, well-written email as a reply to a user email. Use the following information to write the email. And that's it. We fork it, we choose the owner, we create the fork. So now we have all these forks. You can see the API keys, but they will not be available anymore after the video, so I think that will be fine. So now we have to put them in. So this is the email sentiment. So we will basically, let's see where it is, email sentiment. We will copy it into our code. So email sentiment, this is the pipe sentiment. So the question, however, is, we quickly have to ask something, because I'm consistently confused if we have to use these double quotes. So let's quickly open another Claude. I don't want to destroy the one that we currently have, and say, so if I add, if I add the API keys here, do I add them as this and then API key, or simply as so? Is it key gleich equals, equals this one, or key equals this one? And now for API keys, you should enclose the actual key in quotation marks without any additional brackets. So the correct format would be this one. Okay, so we see enclose the actual key without any additional brackets. Okay, so it says like if my key is ABC, then we put this in there. So we can close this, and we can now, we have copy paste this one here. So we can now put this in. This was for the sentiment, right? Yeah, email sentiment API. So here we put the API key for the email sentiment. Then we can close this one. Now we have the pipe API key for the summarizer. So we do the copy paste for the summarizer. We go back in here. This is the summarizer. We do a copy paste. And then we have here this was a summarizer. Then we do the same thing for the decision maker. We have to go to the API keys. We go here for the decision maker. We go back in here. This is the decision maker. We put the pipe in. So this is decision maker, right? So we can close this one. Now here we have the pick email writer. It's a bit copy paste, but I guess. So we go here. Now we pick the pick email writer. And now we close this one. And then we have one last more, which is the email writer itself. We go to API. We do pipe secret API key. We go back in here and we say, let's now put this in. Now all the API keys are in there. So now let's go back. We have our API keys created. So now let's go on. So now with the sentiment analysis, and we start with step 3. So here create a new file in app API sentiment root.ts. So this is what we will be doing. We go to SSC app, and now we have to create an API app. We do API. Let's quickly go in here. So we are now an API, and then with API we say sentiment, another folder, and then we say from here root.ts. So this is now we say, okay, this is great. So we will copy this whole code. We go into here, put this up again, and we input the whole code. So here now we see this is import Langbase. Then we go and have the function here. Please set Langbase AI in your environment variables. Yes, we did that. And then we get the email from the client. So now let's quickly see. It says get email from the client, constant body. So send a post request to the API sentiment endpoint with the email content in the request body to get the sentiment analysis of the email. So this is exactly where I'm not 100% sure what we have to do and where to input that. So let's now see what Claude, ChatGPT, and DeepSeek answered. So hopefully we can solve that with that. So what is Claude saying? I'll help you organize the code in a clear, beginner-friendly structure for your Next.js. Let me break this down step by step. Okay, so here, this is helpful. So what it already does is AI email agent. It says app API. We have all these different sentiment root TS. So it says here the sentiment is the root TS summarized and so on. And then it sees components, email agent, TSX, main component for the email agent. And then in the library, we have the API TS, layout page, and so on. So this is super helpful because this basically helps us to better understand how we can bring this together. And so it says, okay, first create the needed directories. We did this, create and so this exactly, then create app lib API TS with all API functions. So this is, I guess, where we have to put this in. But let's just create exactly this structure and then we go on and build this. But let's quickly see, create an app lib API. Export constant analyze sentiment. So let's see if this here, the export constant analyze sentiment is exactly what we see in the guide. So constant analyze sentiment, async email string, and then return the sentiment analysis. We go back and we then see here, return, well, response JSON. This is, I think, not exactly. Let's quickly do this and we take this out. So we have, I sometimes like to do that too. So we can compare and we can see like what did Claude here create. So this is the Langbase one where it says, okay, this is import Langbase. And then it says, let's go up here. So this is this, it says constant analyze sentiment, async, and then the response, method post, headers is this one, body JSON. And so basically constant and await respond, return sentiment analysis. So this is something we can ask, like why is it doing a bit different? Especially for me, as a beginner, I have to figure out, okay, why exactly does it use it in a bit of a different way? But then it does it actually for all of these export constant ones. And then here it says, okay, if the response is okay, throw new error. If the response is body, constant reader, constant decoder, well, true. So I guess this is what it does to some extent. So it puts it all together here. And then we can see if this works. If it doesn't work, we do it exactly as it is here. As the Langbase says, then create the app components, email agents for the main component. So we get the email agent. We can here use client and it does exactly here all the details. And then what it also does is basically giving us some more insight here that we build the front end on top of that, which is helpful. Then copy all the API root files from the original guide into their respective folders. To run the application, make sure all dependencies are installed, start the development server and open then localhost. So it basically gives us, I think, a very good start of how to build this. So I would say we just follow exactly that analysis and we will start and create those structures. We will just, before we do this, have a quick sneak peek on ChatGPT and DeepSeek, how they structured their responses. So this is my input here. So you see it's rather similar. Actually, what it does, again, it says the end local, it says package and so on. Pages here, it says index TSX. So this is a bit of a different point. So it goes to pages and then puts the index in. And then it has the app, it has the APIs. So these are all those. It had components, and it also has the utils APIs, where here the helper functions for the API calls are get in. Then it create the Next.js API, set up environment variables, create the API routes for each AI pipe. So the sentiment analysis here, summarize email API. It basically does it. I think it looks a bit smoother, but also picks a tiny bit of a different structure. Create a helper file, API file. It does it exactly in the same way as Claude did it. So it says also here only return JSON response. And then in the end, export constant. And next steps, add a simple UI and pages index to send emails to the agents, and use the helper functions to call the APIs. So what Claude did, what I think is really nice, is that it also created us a quick front end. So we don't have to create our own front ourselves. It doesn't know that we obviously could also use the front end that Langbase suggests, but in that sense, we can also do this here. If we look at DeepSeek, yeah, we haven't started yet. So let's not use DeepSeek for now. I think we have a good starting point in which we can start putting it together. And then if we have questions, or if we see, okay, one AI model or the other might work better for us, then we can put this together as well. So with that, let's have basically here our email agent. So let's do this here. And now we have to create all of those different APIs with the sentiment and the roots. So we have the API now. We go back here. We have to click on the API, and then we do another folder, and we call it now the summarizer, summarize. And we call then the file again like the root.ts, which we will follow in a second and fill with the content of the Langbase. But for now, let's go and create all of those folders. So then we have the respond folder. In there, again, we put a root.ts. Then we have as well a pick email writer. And we go here on root.ts. And then we go back to API. We need one more, which is write email. And here again, root.ts. Then what it says as well is the components, which is in the API. So we go in app, we go in components, and in the components we have a file, and we call it email agent.tsx. So here we have then the TypeScript, and then what we have as well is here in the app, we have a lib, and in this library we put in the API TS. And then what we need as well is, let's quickly see, we have the app, and in the app we have a layout, and I think we already have this automatically. Let's quickly close those so we can see we have here a layout TSX and a page TSX, so this works. Then on top of this we have we close the app. We also have here our environment variables, and we have our package JSON somewhere. Package JSON. There's one thing that this is not taking into account, and we should definitely add it. So we should tell Claude and say, hey Claude, we are using SRC. Are there SRC foldering? Are there specific things we have to take into account or change based on that structure? And so now we can check. Yes, when using an SRC folder structure Next.js, we'll need to adjust the file organization. Let me help you adapt the structure for SC-based Next.js applications. So now we see we had a tiny bit of changes, and so this is good because it helps us to check if we really have the right folder structure. So we see we have the SRC here, then we have the app inside, that's good. And then in the app, we have the API, and there we have all our sentiments and so on, and roots, that's good. And then also in the app, we have the layout and the page TSX, but then we see that the components actually have to go into on the same level as the app. So we can put this in here, we say move, And then we do the same thing also with the library and put the library in the SRC. So now we see we have the app, and in the app we have the API as well as layout and page. So here the API layout and page, we can close the API. We have our components here on the same level, and this one, and then in the public, we have the public folder as well as the package JSON, as well as here the environment variable, and we see that the environment variable has to go also actually in this level. So it has to be in the same root level, we could say. So now in the root level, we have here our environment variables. So given that one, we are now good to go because, it says like key changes we have to make. So let's quickly see that we have all of these key changes. We make this small, we make this a bit bigger. So let's quickly see what it says. So key changes, update directory. We have done that. Update import path in email agent. So this is now a bit of a different path import. Okay, so we need to make some changes. It's mainly for the updates, add or update tsconfig JSON path. I guess that's what we have. Okay, so all API roots should be placed in our SRC API and so on. Here's an example of how to update. So this is something we will be doing afterwards. So let's go now back to our project here. And now we have the code, right? So what we do is basically create an applib API with all API functions. So this is all our API functions. We will now copy paste all our API functions and put this in here. So this will be our API functions. Now we have them in there. There's like some error there, previous plus chunk, but let's first just go with that and we can later see why there might be an error. Or if it doesn't work, basically we'll just put everything in there as the Langbase is saying. So with Langbase now, where are we here? We just have to find our email. Wait a second. Langbase, did we now close it? I think we closed it. So let's open Langbase again. Docs, do we have it? Email, AI email agent. So now that we have here the sentiment analysis, we copy pasted it in, send a post request to the API sentiment endpoint with the email content in there. I'm actually almost more inclined to just put this in, but let's follow Claude for now. And if Claude is not working, then we put this in. We put summarize email. And this is the summarize part. So we go to API. We have here the summarize part, the root. We put this in here. So we say this is good. Then we already put the summarized email decision making. We put the code in here. We go, where is it? What is it? Oh, decision making is respond. Okay. So we go to respond, the root, we put in the decision making. Then we go to the send reports, pick email writer, copy. We go in here. We say pick email writer, the root again, and we copy it in here. And then we have the write the email response. So we copy this one. We go the email, write the email. We go in here. We write the email. And now we see send a post request. So if response, actually it's exactly as it's written in here. So we leave it as this is. Now it says build the email agent. So now we copy this one and we actually copy this one into our component. So we have components, email agents. We put our email agent in here. We get a lot of a lot of red remarks. So now that we have done this, let's go back to Claude and see what Claude requested us to do here. So it now said, okay, we have here our, where is it? Wait a second, we have this behind. So now we have it here. So now we can see and check like why it doesn't work. So what we might have missed, and likely we just did not import all of those API routes. So we have no idea of where it comes from. So let's see what we have to do here. So we see create the app components email agent, and we can see that we first have to use client. And then on top of this, we obviously have to import it all in here. So we go in there and we say we report this, and let's quickly put this on top of here. So now we have import. So this became a bit better, but it says import use state, and we currently don't have use state because we're not using it. Then it says actually export default function email agent. Let's quickly open this. So you see it doesn't use exactly this because it first says export default function, constant email use state. So it goes into some more details. So what we will be doing is actually quickly check constant handle submit, try analyze sentiment, and so constant sentiment analysis and email summary. Then it emails this one. It kind of put this all into a whole page. So this is what we will be doing. So we will now copy paste this part. Let's go a bit up from here. So what we will be doing is we go out of here again and we copy paste the new, and we see now it's actually in a good state. Now we know this is fine. Now we still have the lib API, some changes, and we can make this in a second. So what does it say here? Update the app page TSX to use the email agent component. So in the app page, we go email agent and we put this in. So we go app page TSX, so this one here. And this is exactly what we saw before in the here create next app. So we go and take this out because we don't need that. And we just put this in. And now we see we have here some issues with this import, and this is likely exactly the issue that we have based on the changes of the structure. But let's quickly go, because I don't know with the lib API why this is a problem here. And we quickly go and see this previous plus chunk set email reply previous plus chunk. So we can quickly see here in the, let's see where it is. This is build the AI agent. So here we see content set email reply previous plus. Okay, so it uses chat here and not this. So let's quickly see, maybe that's the error. So it says constant chunk. So we might have some weird elements here that are just different. If response body constant, we have to see what it does here. It's the generate email reply. Constant response. If response okay, if response body, we see it's kind of doing something weird, which is not exactly the same. So let's leave it like this, fix everything else first, and then afterwards we will likely do this differently. So let's quickly see what we have here. So also with the API TS, I'm wondering if we have to, we will quickly do this that way, because I think this is weird. With the email agent, we go here in this one, and we will say, wait a second, we copy this one, and we say this post request is somehow generate email reply is somehow different than the one. I have a question. The post utils is different than the one you used. Why? And then we see what it says. Good catch. The two implementations handle streaming responses differently. Let me explain the differences. Original implementation from the guide, my implementation. Key differences: the guide uses Langbase GetRunner utility, which is specifically designed to handle Langbase's streaming response format. My implementation uses the native WebStreams API. So, okay, this is something we just don't do. So we don't need to use Claude's adaptation. So what we can say is there any issue with using exactly the code Langbase gives us in the documentation? No, there's absolutely no issue with using exact code from the Langbase documentation. In fact, it's often better to stick. It follows. Okay. And we can say, okay, so basically, instead of using your code for utils, I can just use exactly their code. Yes, exactly. You can just use their code directly from the documentation. So instead of my implementation, you can use their code. All the other utility functions can stay the same. It's just the streaming part where we'll use their implementation instead of mine. Okay, so basically what we see, not a good idea to do that. So let's use, we can quickly see, so here we see we already have some issues, but what we will be doing is we go up again and we follow Langbase more than Claude. So what we will be doing is here for the sentiment, we copy the constant analyze sentiment, we go in here and we say constant analyze sentiment. Maybe we have to do this export constant sentiment, analyze return sentiment analysis. And now after this, we will do the same with the email summarizer. So we copy this one in here. We go in there and we say export constant summarize email. Then we go on and with the decision making, we go here with constant should respond to email. So should respond to email. So now we have this in here. Now we go pick email writer. So we go to copy, export content email writer. So let's quickly just make sure that we use exactly how they use it. And then we have write email response. So here we have this generate email reply. So we go in here. We will likely have to put the email somewhere else. Export constant. So now we will likely have an error here because let's quickly see constant export email writer and then constant. So see there is an error. So what we have to do is export constant generate email. And then what we do here with the import, we can see, do we have the import on top? No, we can leave it there. And we can just ask about this import. Normally we have to put this in the beginning. So we will put this in here. So now we will there see is there a problem. So we put this up here. And we say, now I inputted all the code exactly as in the documentation. Why is it still marked red? Now we can say specifically, and we can go to the code and we can say specifically it's marked red. So this is all good for set email reply and email reply. at set email reply and email reply. What is missing? So now we can see what might be the reason why there is a problem. I see the issue. Variables are showing as wet because they're not defined in the scope of the function. In the documentation's code, these are assumed to be coming from component state. We need to pass set email reply as a parameter in the function. Here's how to fix it. Export constant generate email reply. Add this parameter. Okay. Okay, now it gets interesting. So here's how to fix it. Export constant general email reply. So let's quickly go into the code and put this in here. So we go up here, export constant general email reply, writer, like equals async. So string, this is the same. And then we say, okay. So we put this far, we put this in here. We say writer is string, email summary is also string. And then we put in one more here, and we basically say set email reply to previous string. So we copy this, paste in here. So void. So now this works. And now what we have to do, let response text. So we have if response is okay, then this one. And then we put here this extra line in here. So we put this in here. This comes here. We also have here an error for the toast, but we can figure this one out later. Then if the response body for await, coast, chunk, and so on, if content, now we have constant chunk this one. So let's quickly see. So this is this one, and then you see there is like one additional one. So we say if, and now we say content. So see, this is normally exactly the issue then. So because now we say if content, then we open it up and we say response text plus equal content set email reply response text. And then we cut this part out. And then what we also miss, I think, is actually one additional of these brackets. So we go down here and we put another bracket in here. And now we go, and then we turn the response text instead of the email response. Okay, it still gives us an error because it says this toast error. So let's see if we have any other errors in here. No, we can say, okay, there is still an error below the toast dot. And we can see what it answers. Because now we also have the use client, or we have updated email address. Okay, this works. But now what we see is the page TSX shows an error. So that's probably because of the imports. So let's quickly see what it says for the changes of the SRC. So we have updated API. So let's quickly see that. Next.js structure, and it says update directory creation. So CD, okay, that's fine. Update the import path and email agents. So we quickly go in here and we say, here we see import email agents from, and now we have to put the at. So we see this fixed this page. And then we can also see at update the page TSX import. So this is what we did or we lost this one here, update directory creation commands. That's fine. Update import path and email agent, so as SRC. So we go to email agent, use clients, and we say, so this should work. It says, okay, import all of them from, however, add, so not this one, but the where do we have the add plus the add lib. So we did that one, and then we should be good to go. We can add or update tsconfig JSON path, which likely we don't have to do because it's already there, tsconfig JSON. So compiler options, and then we have path here, and we have add already in there. So there we don't have to make changes. All API routes should be placed in SRC app API instead of app API. So this is what we did. And then here's an example of how to update the import path in your lib API file. So API function implementation remain the same, just move to, okay, so this seems API sentiment. So this should not be a big issue. The only issue that we still have is that this lib API TS is apparently not working. But let's quickly save everything here. And let's see if we go now to our email agent. So we see in localhost, paste your email here. We could already say, hey, it was great meeting you today at the event. Would you be up for a coffee next week? And a nice email. So let's see what's happening. So this is just a very, very quick test to see if anything works, because we still have an error in there. And so now we see we have a response is an error occurred while processing your request. So this is great or not great. So what we can be doing is, and we go back to Claude here and see what Claude came up with. So we say here it says, yes, the toast error is occurring because the toast function hasn't been imported. You need to import the toast function from React Hot Toast. You'll need to first install. So now we see this is one of the reasons why it doesn't work. So let's quickly do this. Install this React Hot Toast. Then add the import at the top of your file. So import toast. So we do this. So import toast. This is into the top of the file. I think this is also here in the lib. So we have this and we import the toast. So now we see it actually became green. So now let's run this again. We just copy paste here this email. We restart it again. So let's taste in and let's see if it comes up and it works. Response, now it says there's an error, unexpected end of JSON input. So normally what we do, we can say here, also make sure, okay, the toaster. So let's quickly, go back to the code and first add this to make this perfect. So in the email agent, we have to import here the toaster. So we go in here, we import this in here, and we say export default function, email agent, return. So we have to see where we return here. Div toaster position. Okay, where exactly do I include the toaster? At the very wrapping div for all after return. And secondly, I get an error for the application in localhost. And now this is obviously not what we want to have, but the error is exactly this one. So we go back into here and we say, this is what we put in. And then what we can do is, very importantly, then we go back into here, we go to bash and we see what actually happened. So we see that here we have compiled API sentiments, no HTTP methods exported in this one. And so what we can do, we can basically put in here and we can see what it says. And then as well, we can say like what might be the error. So let me help with both issues. For the toaster placement, yes, it should go inside the very first wrapping div after return. So now we see this is what we can add. The unexpected end of typically occurs when trying to pass invalid or incomplete JSON. Let's check your API route. Let's check the sentiment route as an example. Fig should be similar for all routes. Import Langbase. So this is actually what we might have forgotten, but I don't think so. Make sure we're returning a properly formatted JSON response. To debug this, check that all your environment variables are properly set. Add console logs in your APIs route. Also checks your browser's developer. So here is what I saw in the terminal. So now we can put this in. And what we can also do is that we fix this toaster here. So we go into here and we say, okay, div class name, and it's always like for form here. So basically the only thing that we do is we put in here this toaster. So we go back in here. And this one, however, I think we just leave it here. So let's see. We go back. And now the page is not available. This is not ideal. So we can say, let's quickly take this out. Okay, now it can't be reached at all. So apparently it's not necessarily this toaster function that was an issue, but we can still put this in. Toaster position top right, place it here at the top, and then form submit. Okay. So now, but however, what we see is that we have an error for the unexpected end of JSON. So I see the issue. The error occurs because of how Next.js handles API routes. We need properly export the post method. Let's fix your root.js file. Original export constant post should be export async function post. So basically it says import okay, use next response JSON, import next response from next server. This should resolve the 405 method not allowed error you're seeing. So this is now export async function. So let's go to the sentiment route. So you see I'm not a big fan about that, of just changing everything. But if we see write the email response, we actually have the async function in here. So I'm wondering what Claude is specifically import next response. Okay, wait, original export constant post. Let's quickly see what we have here. In the sentiment, we go to the root and we see export async function, so we already have this. So I don't really know what's the issue here, so let's quickly put this in here and say it's already export constant async. So what is the problem here? Okay, so this apparently is not the problem. When we see, we can clearly not see here the thing. And interestingly, when we made changes to this toast element, this is when things went a bit wrong. We can also see we have our here SDK and Langbase in there. We have the APIs. We have our page. So this always works. So what we can say is Claude, the front end is not available anymore after we installed the toast and added it to the different elements of code. So how can we bring it up again, as well as how can we test the code, as right now nothing really works. So now, because we don't see it, let's quickly go, I have one idea why it might not work, because we actually stopped the server. So that's the main reason, because we installed in here. So let's quickly npm run dev, and then let's see what happens before we make here any changes, because I think we actually have exactly the code. So there might be something else why it might not be working. But that's exactly what you realize when you start working. Just picking it and putting it all together takes some time and to figure out like why exactly that's the case. So now let's enter again. Now it's loading. This is a good sign. There's not, despite this toaster that we added in, there's nothing very specifically that we changed. So, hey, it was great meeting you yesterday. Wanna have lunch next week? Best Anna. Now let's analyze the email. So it's processing. Response and error occurred. So great. We have an error again. So now we see no HTTPS method export. And again, it stopped. So the question is, where is the issue? Because we have kind of the layout here, we have everything put in exactly as it mentioned. So there should be no error. So the question is, okay, where does the error is the problem? The problem might be that we have the SRC and there might be some problems in how we organize this. So we can say Claude, there is an error, and there's likely like a very basic error or like a beginner error. But let's see what we can do is we have the agent here. We go in AI email agent. We do make this smaller. And now we see AI email agent. We have everything in here. SRC, we have the app. We have here the API with all of these different email writers. We have here the root TS and here for the sentiment as well. So this should work. However, I'm wondering why that is in that sense. This is the API. And so what it focuses on mainly is saying AI email agent, sentiment root TS, export named export for each HTTPS. So post API sentiment and post API summarize. So the sentiment is the problem. So here is the code I put in for the utils post for all the different elements. So let's go back to Langbase where we have our AI email and say no here and go to the APIs, and we basically copy paste this whole thing, and we go back to Claude and we say, and maybe there is an error in there. So let's see what it says. The error is coming from your sentiment. Since you're getting a 4 or 5 error for the sentiment endpoint, but a 200 for summarize, let's compare them. Could you show me your current API sentiment root and API summarize root files? This will help us identify which one is working and the other isn't. Based on the error message, there might be an issue with how the post method is exported in your sentiment root file. Utils code you shared looks correct, so the problem is likely in the root handlers. Let's verify that your sentiment root.js looks like this. So interestingly, okay, so we see that there is an error there. We copy pasted it exactly as from the Langbase. So this is a bit not clear why there is a problem, but maybe that's exactly the problem because we did not import Langbase and Next response. So let's just import those two and put them on top of here. But we're not using them really apparently, so we don't really need them. Export async. So we see that this is not exactly the same, so we put this in again. Oh, it looks like for the sentiment, sorry, this is wrong. So we made a mistake, so these two go out. And we go to the sentiment root and we say sentiment root, and then we say summarize root, and we say the summarize root is this one, and we copy this one. So we see that something is not working, and it says the main difference is how they handle responses. Let's update the sentiment root to use next response, as it's the recommended way in Next.js 13+. And here you see now the big problem. Next.js 13+ is not necessarily Claude. It's not necessarily how we should do this, especially as here in the Langbase, we used exactly the Langbase code. And so that's the question okay, if we just copy this in, why is it not working for us? Given the fact that we're using here the newest code. So we can just do this again, but we really copy pasted it exactly in as it is. Well, let's go here to Claude and see what it says. So this is the sentiment TS at this import, pass JSON response from Langbase. It says, let's also update your summarize root for consistency. So we can do this because we have this anyways here, and we can just see if we change something in the sentiment root, only this one now, if this still works. So let's just make the changes and let's create here this email again. We upload this, we paste the email in, and let's see if this made any changes. So it's processing a very long time. So we see analyze email, response, syntax error, unexpected, doc type is not valid in JSON. So we can say we adapted the sentiment root and got the following errors. And then we check in here and we can see compiled not found. So we might just put all of this up here. So we see here compiling, compiled, compiling not found. So this is what we see. And we can see what might be the error here. I see in the final issue is a 404 error with the API endpoint that suggests the root handler for email writing is either missing or named incorrectly. Let's check two things. First, make sure your email writer root file is in the correct location and named correctly. So let's see, write email. We check for write email root TS. So this is in here. We can also put this in here. But you are calling fetch email writer. This is what your utility function is using. You need to either change your utility function to match your root path. Oh, see, we have email writer, write email. You need to either change your utility function to match your root path, write email, or rename your root folder to match the API endpoint. So what we can be doing, so let's quickly not do that. Wait a second. So we say export constant general email reply and then constant response. So we go in here and we say change utility function to match your root path. Let's quickly see. Likely this is more like the root path, email writer. So let's root TS. So we say rename and we say email writer. Okay, and now we save this again. Now let's first go back in here, copy paste this email again, reload this, put the email in and analyze the email. I just see that there's some grammar mistakes, excuse for that. And now I would say we have our response. Subject, we lunch. Hi Anna, I hope you're doing well. I really enjoyed our meeting too and would love to grab lunch next week. Let me know what day works best for you. Looking forward to it. Best, your name. I would say we were successful. We just created our AI email agent and now you can basically use this. I could now deploy my AI email agent and in that sense I would have created this agent. And obviously this is a very basic one because ideally I would just fetch all of the emails that I get, for example, from my Gmail or my Outlook folder and would automatically input them here in my AI email agent. And then my AI email agent could give me some insights on how the response could be. And then I can route this response back to my Gmail or Outlook folder. But this is something we will be doing later on and make it more complex. For now, this is a very simple one. As you can see, is how to create this rather easily with Langbase. And now we created all of this content here. We created and forked those Langbase APIs or like pipes that we created. I think, where was it? Likely now we have all these forked pipes in here. So here you can see the email writer, pick email writer, and so on. So this was for demo purposes only. I hope this was helpful. And if you like to follow for more AI agents and how to build them specifically for the relationship management, focus on how do you build your relationship management and how you can better manage your networks and connect your network and build your network, then I would love for you to follow and let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.